Welcome back to the podcast. This is Matt Eagle from Eagle AI Agency. If you've been following along, we've been interviewing CEOs, owners in coaching space, professional services, and staffing. I think this is episode 52. So we've had a lot of discussions around AI. We've had a lot of discussions about business development, business ownership. And so today we have Rusty on. Rusty, if you can, introduce your business, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm Rusty Gaylord and I'm an executive coach. Been doing this for about 8 years and I coach mid-level leaders to break through to a new level of performance. So that often looks like promotion or, kind of enjoying your work again in a way that maybe you haven't in a while. And the interesting part is it never comes from working harder. It's always an internal change that comes from being more confident and decisive and taking action before you're ready.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how long have you been in business, and like what made you go into business for yourself? If you can't go through your background too, I think it has a ton of credibility as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent 14 years at Apple, and I joined Apple after business school at Stanford, which is so that was kind of planted me in California, where I lived for 25 years. I worked in operations and then finance at Apple, and after 14, so I started Apple pre-iPhone, so that gives you an idea how long it was
Wow. Yeah,
ago.
that's amazing though. Yeah.
And I love Apple. I think it's a great company, and I enjoyed working there. Super grateful that I got to work there. And after 14 years, the company had changed. It was much bigger. It was a very different place. And I had lost some of that drive to create a bigger corporate career. And I was looking for something that I wanted to do. I mentioned earlier that I was like, I help people reconnect with work that makes them feel good again. And that's what I was looking for. And I just wasn't finding that inside Apple. I lived in Silicon Valley, so I looked at Facebook and Google and other companies, and they all looked like another version of the same. And I didn't want that. And it was really took me a long time to find the path towards coaching. But really, when I did, I talked about a moment ago that I help people create success through internal change, bringing more confidence and decisiveness to their work. And that's what it took for me. Once I found that, I discovered that I did want to go in the path of coaching and moved in that way and never looked back, despite people thinking I was crazy to leave Apple.
Yeah, I mean, I've had great careers myself. I mean, good paying ones too as well. For me at this point in my life, I would rather feel fulfilled. I'd rather kind of walk in my calling and then also get paid, right? But it's not even about the pay anymore. It's about how do I feel every day showing up to the thing that I'm doing, right? Of course, there's sacrifice, there's ceiling, there's all these things, but I think at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it really comes down to like, what are you actually doing, you know?
I think that's true, but I think equally important is how you're doing it. And, I tell my clients, like, my advice, I'm never going to tell you what to do. That's not my role. My role is to help you figure out what you want us to do. And for me, that path looked like leaving the corporate world, but that's not the right path for everybody. And
Yeah,
I think one of the challenges that people face inside the corporate world is they think they have to be corporate. They think
yeah,
there's this set of rules that they have to follow. And so they start taking this, coloring inside the lines effectively. And there's so much room to color outside the lines. I was just reading an article today in the Wall Street Journal about people who have started divvying up their day. And they're like, well, I'm going to get up at 6, I'm going to work for 2 hours, and then I'm going to take the kids to school, like sit down with breakfast and take them to school and not work for 90 minutes. And then I'm going to come
yeah,
back and work again. Then I'm going to go to the gym. And, like you can craft your day in a way that works for you. And that's just one example, but I can give you a dozen examples which says you can still find a way that works for you inside the corporate world. And you can do that in terms of your schedule. You can do that oftentimes in terms of your job responsibilities. You can do it in terms of the influence you have, how able you are to speak up and bring ideas to the table. All of these things are things that you can do. And so in effect, people often don't like the corporate world because they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm working for the man and I got to just
yeah. I'm in a
fall in
box.
line and do what everybody else is telling me to do. But
Yeah,
I think that's the mindset that creates that result. And if you can change that mindset, which is how I always talk about changing from the inside out, if you can change that mindset, all of a sudden this whole world of freedom opens up and you can interact and work in a way that can be very rewarding, even
yeah.
inside the corporate environment, which has tons of advantages.
Have you found any issues of people having they want to do that, but their employer is kind of it does box them in, obviously, because you have great environment, big corporations, they can really do that, but then some people are constrained. Have you seen both sides of those tables? Like, People being constrained by their employer?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like the employers always have expectations. Some companies say, whatever, you have to be in 3 days, or some of them are 5 days a week. You have to be at your
Right.
office, right? So, of course, I recognize that. But even given the constraint, people think there are way more constraints than there are. I'll give you a
Right.
personal example from my time at Apple. Apple, so the role I was in was always an international role. We were based in California in the headquarters, Cupertino. We worked with Europe and with Asia. Europe we'd talk to in the morning because by the end of our morning was the end of their workday, and so they were all
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
And Asia we'd talk to at the end of the day because the end of our day was the beginning of their next day. And so we
Right.
overlapped a little. And basically what that meant is my day stretched. I needed to be in early to talk to Europe, and I needed to be in late to talk to Asia. And everyone around me, it was very common to be there until 6:30 or 7 at night. After my son was born, I changed the role that I was in. I deliberately took a different role that would give me more flexibility. And I changed my role, and I started leaving at 5 o'clock. Now, two things happened. Well, actually, three things happened. The first is nothing. Nothing material happened, meaning nobody said anything, nobody complained. I still got my job done. If I needed to talk to Asia, I would do it later at night. It was fine. It was more the middle of their day rather than the beginning. So job performance wise, nothing happened. The other thing that was notable about that was how guilty I felt doing it.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was the biggest barrier to doing this was me, because I was like shirking out of the office at 5 o'clock so that I could go have dinner with my son, which, a lot of people would hear that and they say, well, good for you. But some people might say, oh man, you're such a slacker.
Right.
Why are you leaving when everyone else is in the office? And I was in that second camp. I was like, everyone else is here. I shouldn't be leaving. But that's an internal thing. I was still able to get all of my work done, and my boss never had any complaints. I still had all the meetings I needed to have, and it totally worked. So that's just an example of the way you can create flexibility for yourself. And this, by the way, was pre-pandemic, well before the work from home and all that kind of stuff. But because we were working with Asia, by definition, we were online. But it was before
That's
that level of
interesting.
flexibility.
I'm guessing that was a phone call or a Zoom, or I guess Uvu at that time, right? Something, some type of webcam. That's awesome. And what kind of strategy do you take people through specifically? Is it like a 8-week program? Is it just catering to each person, or is it customizable? How does that actually look?
Yeah, everything I do is 100% customized. So I recommend that we start with 12 weeks. But many of my clients I've been seeing for months and sometimes years.
Yeah.
That's by no means required. I don't ask that of people, but they find it helpful because the reality is we are 100% influenced by the people we spend time with, 100%. And the people we're around determine how we see the world. And that sounds like a very strong statement, but it's true. It's 100% true. And I mean, personally, I've lived this because I just moved from California to Florida. And in terms of the way people drive, the way people dress, their political thinking, all of these things are completely different. And I'm watching myself change because I'm in a new environment.
Yeah. Florida and California are two different places, I'll tell you that much.
Totally different. But so I recommend like 12 weeks as a starting point. But the reason people continue to work with me for a long time is I help anchor them in this different way of thinking. This much more expansive way, like getting rid of the lines. So you're not thinking about, am I coloring in the lines, but you're more tuned into your own intuition, your sense of confidence, your decisiveness, your willingness to move forward and take action. And when people are able to do those things, it creates a degree of freedom in them. And they're not only more successful at work, but they're happier doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can totally see that. Some people have to go a decade to learn those things versus just talk to you and get it done on the first front, Yeah, because you can't sometimes put a thumb on it on why you feel so bad. You don't realize the subconscious is really driving you down, or your ego is making you feel bad. And as you've grown your business, obviously through multiple different eras, right? You have COVID, you've started your business much more, before that. How have you seen building a business change, right? Like owning maybe funnels or marketing or technology, like how have you seen that evolve?
Well, so a lot of my business I've grown through relationship and through referral and also through LinkedIn. So especially early on, that was my primary way of connecting with people was through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I would say one of the biggest changes on that platform specifically is how it became more and more like other social media platforms. It used to be
Facebook,
there was a lot more integrity there in LinkedIn, and it was tended to be more of a professional connection. And that's just eroded over time, and it has been much more kind of like mass market communication.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say today, and this is kind of like getting into your next topic, there's a little bit of a competing dynamic going on. On the one hand, people's attention span is shorter and shorter. I mean, you post on YouTube. I have my own YouTube channel, and everything says if you don't grab their attention in the first 20 seconds, they're out.
They're out. Yeah.
Like 20 seconds. Holy cow, that's a short attention span. But on the other hand, I think people actually are craving something meaningful.
Yeah.
Because and I think those two dynamics go together, right? On the one hand, it's like, well, man, all I'm eating is snack food every day, right? 20-second chunks, and I want something that actually makes a real difference for me, that actually moves the needle in my life, and that's the kind of thing that doesn't come in a 20-second chunk,
Right.
And so I think there is really a craving for that at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's almost like they can smell from a mile away whether it's real or fake. And sometimes they can't. Marketing's a tough one, especially on LinkedIn. The algorithm's a little weird, to be honest with you. Instagram, Facebook's a little bit more predictable, right, as well as ads and those things. So it's been interesting. But as you can tell, people are accepting AI responses. They're accepting AI stories. They're accepting AI outreach. So now it's just intentionality of market ICP and does it actually resonate with the person? Right, they're almost okay with an automated outreach as long as the automated outreach connects to them specifically, right?
Yeah.
Which is what I'm starting to see change. But for you, are you leveraging AI? What's your perspective of AI? I actually am excited to hear you talk about this because you had Apple in the beginning and now we're here. So what do you see as AI being a huge contributor to the market today?
Yeah, I mean, I think if anybody in any role, whatever they're doing, if they're not using AI, they're missing the boat. I think AI absolutely needs to be a part of everyone's work. And you need to put some effort into figuring out how actually to leverage it effectively. For me personally, most of the AI comes on kind of refining ideas and honing words, word selection. And I use it for a lot of like rough drafts and, idea generation and that kind of thing. But it's never that I take it out of the box. I never take it out of the box. And the thing that always cracks me up about AI is how when you change something or you correct it, it's always complimentary. It's always, oh, that's such a good idea. But I think you have to be using it because it is such a powerful and fast way of iteration and refining and ideation. So those are the ways that I'm using it now. I have not used it as much in the automated kind of
workflow
agent or workflow sense yet.
Yeah. The agentic workflows. Yeah. And what I found as a gap, and maybe you can put a little light on this too. There's a gap between people who stepped in, figured it out, started white labeling it, overpricing it, right? Tremendously. And now AGI is out with Claude. So that's going to get a little scary, but it's developing itself. It's moving at a much faster pace. And Claude put out a story where they said, we can't stop moving forward or we'll go bankrupt. We have to stay with the competition. They're probably not making any money at this point, right? Because they have to continue to push something out every single week, right? And the credits, aren't super expensive. So where are they making the money, right? But when it comes to agentic workflows and those things, they're very simple and not complicated, but a lot of people are nervous to get into it. Cybersecurity issues or just understanding tokens, or are they going to overpay, underpay? So there's this huge gap between someone who said, I'm just going to dive in and figure this out. I don't care what risk I take. And then they figured out and understand it's not as complicated, or somebody who doesn't, right? And then now they're going to have to buy something that's overly priced. So what are your thoughts on how the market's moving from the adoption?
I think the dynamic that you just described, you can generalize to be one of the primary dynamics that is a challenge for anyone who's stuck in work, which is a willingness to dive in and try it and experiment and see what happens and learn and adjust and keep moving forward. Versus the person who's more conservative, who's worried, well, this may not go well. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm out of my depth. I may look like a fool. Any of the reasons we have that makes us uncomfortable to step forward. And AI is one illustration of that dynamic.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's the dynamic that holds so many people back. I think I mentioned earlier when I was leaving Apple, people literally tried to talk me out of it. Saying you shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And that's fine, right? Like everyone is entitled to their own worldview. But if you've got that perspective of risk aversion or, whatever your value set is that kind of keeps you in that place that you don't want to experiment or try things or fail or look dumb or make a mistake, that's going to impact what you're able to accomplish in life.
Yes.
I think AI is playing out all the time in AI right now.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to really uncover, and I love that because it's all it is risk aversion. It's just not willing to take the risk. What was kind of weird though is there's like a cliffhanger here where like AI, you got a computer, you have 5 years, the computer looked the same the first year as the fifth year. They just new software. So you had time to like figure it out and slow down and like really understand the tool and then understand the next tool that's coming out next year, right? I think with AGI, there's a new tool every week. Fable just dropped on Claude. Codex is throwing something out this week that's very similar to it. So it's evolving so quickly. So I feel like it's really going to show in the next 2 years who decided to step in and at least understand the basics, understand the mechanism, and people who didn't, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just think that the evolution is much quicker than I think people should realize, and just step in, just say, hey, let's go do this thing, right? It's not super difficult.
Well, one of the things I like to tell people is one of the best ways to step in is to pull up Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever and just say, hey, I don't know how to use this. Like, what are some ideas? Like, you can have a conversation with AI about how to use AI. Yeah. Right. You can say, this is what I'm doing. These are the challenges, or these are my hobbies, or this is what I'm interested in. How can I use you to help me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then there's just so many, if you even ask it, hey, what are some free courses I can take? Right. Small stuff like that. Obviously I run a course. I'm a little biased, just for business development. Right. But it is much. I just want to encourage people. It's much easier than it looks. It's not as hard as you think it is, and there's nothing that's going to take your money and identity right off the bat. You just got to take it step by step, right? Is there any recommendations you would give somebody that's like on the fence of just saying, should I evolve? Should I stay the same? Is AI just going to go away because they said the same thing in 2000, right? Is it just going to go away? Like, what should be the mindset that they should have going into this new era?
Oh, well, I mean, look at life now versus look at life in 2000. So I'm getting ready to go back for my 25th business school reunion. I showed up in 1999 at the business school at Stanford. So we're graduated in 2001, so 25 years, and we're going back. And we were just chatting with classmates, and some people didn't have a cell phone in 1999 or 2000. When I wanted to go somewhere, I was thrilled because I could go on to MapQuest and print out turn-by-turn directions to bring in my car with me. I mean, think about how much life has changed in the 25 years. And you just described an acceleration of that. So is AI going away? Absolutely not. Do we know how it's going to play out? Of course we don't. And like, to me, I think there's a philosophical question behind the question you asked, which is, do I get involved now? Do I wait? Do I there's this kind of like fear and all that. And the philosophical question is, when you die, what will have made a good life, right? We're all going to die at some point. And we're going to look back at our life and we're going to say, like, what are the highlights? Like, what are the best parts of your life? You can even do that right now. You can look back and kind of reflect over your life and say, what were the best parts? What were the things that in the end created the most meaning for me in my life? Because that's all you get to take with you is the meanings and the impressions of life, and everything else is left behind. And oftentimes it's the unexpected things, the things that you didn't want that happened anyway, or the risks you took, or it's all of these things that when you're looking ahead at them, you don't want them. But when you're on the other side of it, and especially when you're 20, 30, 50 years on the other side of it, you look back and you're like, thank God that happened in my life. Because it took me in a new direction. It opened up a new possibility. It changed me, and I became a different person or a better person. And so it's your willingness to kind of take this a little philosophical perspective on life and what is it about? Because we take it so seriously and like, oh my gosh, I can't make a misstep, and I can't do something wrong, or I can't invest $1,000, $10,000, $30,000 on this thing because like that's a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But when you die, it's irrelevant.
It didn't matter anyways. Yeah.
But it's not an easy perspective to really take and to live into. But it could be. I think it's a really powerful one because in the end, I think that's what life is about experience and experiment, and you got to lean in.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. It is a deeper root cause of a philosophical question. Like, are you willing to take the risk or not? I was a professional athlete, and those are the things I live for. It's like I kind of a thrill seeker. Like I like to go into danger zones a little bit, right? And that's why I embraced AI so much, because I just wanted to know. You don't want to sit here not knowing what it looks like. But Rusty, how can people get a hold of you? How can they find you? How can they? I don't know I think you wrote a book too as well. If you want to shout the book out, that'd be amazing.
I wrote a book as well. So the easiest way to find me is my website. It's rustygaylord.com. I'm also on YouTube. Like you, Matt, I've got a YouTube channel, so you can find me at Rusty Gaylord. But that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. What's the title of the book?
The title of the book is Breaking the Code. So it's kind of alluding to what we're talking about here, right? Which is that change starts on the inside. Oh,
that's amazing. Well, Rusty, thank you so much for jumping on. It's so insightful, so concise. Obviously, we know you worked for Apple just by the way you talk. No, I'm just kidding. So, I appreciate you jumping on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks, Matt.